Hi there, it's Karen Williams here, and I am back today for the third in a four-part series of Facebook Lives where I'm talking about the difference between author and authority and how those three little letters, the ITY, can make a huge difference when you're writing a book. Now, if you saw the lives I did last week, I did one on Thursday, which talks about the difference between author and authority, but more into the definitions, what they stand for, what they mean, and just a bit of the thought process behind the book and what I've been learning from doing my research. And if you haven't already got a copy of Becoming an Authority, do go to becominganauthority.co.uk. You can listen to it. It's 3.5 hours long, broken down into bite-sized chunks to make it easy to listen to and easy to understand. And then on Friday, I talked about the I, how to make an impact with your book, how to influence through your book, and also about the investment side of things, where I touched on time, and I'm going to go into that in a little bit more detail today. So I see there's some people live. If you are live and you want to say hello, pop a note in the comments, please do so. And if you're watching the recording, please do ask any questions you have as we go as well. And then finally, tomorrow, I'm going to be talking about you and your story, why you need to be firmly at the heart of your book, but your reader needs to be in the forefront of your mind. And I'm really looking forward to exploring that. And I've got some great client examples as well. So hi, Emma. Hi, DL. Nice to see you and lovely to be here. If you've got any questions, let me know. So today is all about time, timely, and timescales. Now, time, as you can imagine, is one of the things that thwarts many business owners when it comes to writing a book. I don't know about you, but there's never enough hours in the day. There's always something to be done, and the book always goes on the bottom of the to-do list. And I find that so much, and I find it so easy to do that with anything in our lives, isn't it? Because it's a hard thing to do, writing a book. So I think one of the things that I find a lot with people, and you might resonate with this, you might not, is that I come across so many people who've said to me, I've been wanting to write a book for years. I've had people for a few years. I had one person say 10 years. And actually, it's really sad if you really want to do it and then for one reason or another, it doesn't happen. And for people, it's not been the right time. Absolutely, I get that. But that dream, what needs to happen to turn that dream into doing? And that's the question I asked you today. So if you're still dreaming and you're thinking about writing a book, but you haven't actually got into the doing side of things yet, I'd love to know what would happen to actually get into that doing side of things. And I did a survey a few years ago, and there were two things that came up when it came to writing a book that the people struggled with. And one was getting started and one was time. And actually the two go hand in hand, because if you don't know how to get started, there's never going to be time to do it. So what needs to happen for it to become a priority? Now, one thing I find with a lot of clients is that something in their life has tipped them over from thinking, dreaming, to actually doing it. For some, it's been like a big birthday. For some, I remember for Emma Heptestall, actually, one of her clients was also thinking about writing a book. One of her competitors was thinking about writing a book, and she wanted to get in there first, and she wanted for her book to arrive around about the same time, which it did. And actually, the worst thing that can happen, to be honest, is that you read a book that you wish you had written yourself, or you knew you could do it better. And for others, it's a legacy. You want to leave something behind so others don't experience some of the stuff that you've been through. So there's all sorts of things that can tip you over from that dreaming to doing. Sometimes you just need clarity in your message. Sometimes you need to sit with it for a while. So what needs to happen for you to make time to write your book? So I'm going to share a few tips with you around time today. So I've got a few in front of me. Right, so the first one is only decide to write your book when you're willing to make a priority and you're willing to make sacrifices for it to happen. So things that clients have done and I've done is, turning off distractions, coming off social media for a bit, setting boundaries with family and friends and telling them that, writing time is going to happen, planning it into your diary, and then ensuring that you ring fence that time is one of the things that a lot of people do. You might go away to write your book. We run writing retreats in Spain, and also we ran one last year in the UK as well. And actually taking time out to actually go away and write is something many clients have done. When I wrote Becoming an Authority earlier this year, I took myself away for 4 days and I got 22,000 words done in that time. If I hadn't done it, I would probably still be thinking about it now, because to be honest, there's always things to be done. So actually taking that time away where there are no excuses, there's no barriers, there's no distractions. All I had to do is look after myself, and that is something that can help many people when it comes to writing a book. The second thing on my list is plan your book before you start writing it. That's a real key thing in my view. is that when you've got a really good structure and you know exactly what's in chapter 1, what's in chapter 2, including exercises, stories, activities, the content, just a skeleton overview is all you need, and you know what's in chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, etc., it will make it easier to write. And I did that before I went away in May. I knew exactly what was going to be in a chapter. However, there were times when I sat down to write and went, oh, I don't want to write about this, or actually I need to do some more research first. And being able to capture that information, just being able to put in red, maybe a few bullet points of what I wanted to write was the thing that helped me to finish it, because I could go back to it later. So whenever I work with clients, one thing we do is we sit down with a big piece of flip chart paper. We get the post-it notes out. We map everything out from start to finish. Now, even if it evolves, and my book did, and most client books do, you've got that starting point, haven't you? You've got the starting point of having, knowing, I've had people sort of on their walls put up the flip chart paper, and sticking it down so they don't fall off, so they know exactly what comes and when. And you can also then identify if anything's missing. So I'll give you an example. Leslie Pine, Finding Joy Beyond Childlessness, when she was writing her book, we sat in a hotel just outside Petersfield in Hampshire. We sat down, we mapped everything out. And for her book, it was driven by a lot of interviews that she had done in the past. So what we did with that is she identified, which interviews she did not need to include because there were more than enough in that chapter. And we also identified whether she needed to do any more interviews for her blog that would enable her to multi-purpose the content, but also enable her to flesh out that part of the book. And actually that leads me to another point, is that, writing a book should go hand in hand with everything you do. So I talked briefly on the first Facebook Live about alignment. And actually when everything's aligned in your business, it will make it easier. Because instead of thinking, oh, I need to write a blog on this, oh, and I'm writing my book, and I need to do a newsletter, and I need to do social media, when everything is aligned, it makes it easier. So for example, with becoming an authority, I'm already using content from that into my blogs. I was writing something, a LinkedIn article the other day, using some of the information from my book. So when the two go hand in hand, it will save you time, because stuff that you put in a blog can go into your book, and everything in your book, or some of the things in your book, can go into a blog. Another great example, Louise Harrington, who published her book last year, which was a guide to tax and accounts, and she basically took her blogs and then they went into her book. So we worked out, we planned it. She'd already done some of the writing when we met up, but we actually looked at the blogs that could go in the book. They needed tweaking for them to make sense, for there to be continuity, but it made it easier for her to write it because she already had a lot of the content. She just had to go back and sanity check it, really. So I suppose what I'm saying here is that time, I think when you look at the whole, I'm going to move on to Timely now, when you look at the whole thing about writing a book, I'm writing 50,000 words, that feels incredibly overwhelming, doesn't it? That thought of getting everything out of your head and down on paper, and you might know how many words you can write in an hour, and you think, oh my God, how many hours is that going to take? And that could feel extremely overwhelming. So certainly when I work with clients, we map everything out and we look at, okay, so what is the end point? When do you want your book published? How do we work back to make sure it happens in a timely manner? And then we look at all the milestones along the way. So wouldn't it be easier to say, right, I've got one chapter that I want to, one chapter in a fortnight, which is maybe 2,000-3,000 words. Wouldn't that be easier than saying I'm writing 50,000 words? Oh my God, where do I start? So breaking it down into manageable chunks is key. So when it comes to time and timely, another question that you might be asking, and I get asked this a lot, is how long does it take to write a book? The typical book is around about 50,000 words, give or take. Becoming an Authority was 37,000 words, so slightly shorter than some of my other books. And we've worked with Steve Judge, which was our biggest book, which was 96,000 words. But if you're aiming for around about the 40 to 50,000 word mark, and you can dedicate, I talked in the investment one on Friday about how long it would take to write a book. But if you just, for simplicity's sake, let's say you're going to do half a day a week on it, you're going to write, say, 500 words an hour, that's 2,000 words a week. So basically, within half a year, 6 months, you can get the first draft written. And it really depends on how much editing you do. I write quicker than that. I do about 1,000 words an hour, but I appreciate you might not be as quick as I am. So let's think about it in those terms. So in reality, you should be able to get to a first draft within 6 months. I think people underestimate how long it takes to do the editing of the book. That can take quite a long time. And we take 4 months from final draft to publication as well. So that involves things like getting peer review, getting a copy editor, doing the proofreading, having the design done, having the typesetting, the cover, and actually going, doing the whole distribution and publishing on Amazon and all of the other online bookstores. So we typically allow 4 months for that. And, something else I'm asked quite a lot is, can you get my book published for me next month? And the answer I always have to give is no, because to do a quality process, we take 4 months to go through the whole process. Because in my view, it's really important to have something that's professional, that looks good, that feels good, and that really does service to you and your business. However, there are ways you can do it quicker. There are quicker routes to get your book out there. Take audiobook, for example. I did go from final draft to getting my book online and available in about 6 weeks, just because I went down that route instead. So there are different ways to do it if you wish to do so. But I would say when it comes to time and timely, if you're writing a book, do it in a timely manner. If you're looking at sort of 6 to 9 months to write it, and then maybe a year in total to get it out of your head and into your hands, but don't do a rush job, and also don't leave it so long that it never gets done and it keeps going on the back burner. So time is important, but be realistic to when it fits in. So timescales, I think I probably pretty much covered that. Just looking at my notes, is there anything else I wanted to cover? Yeah, timescales, timely, it's really all about making time. Writing a book is something that will take you time. You will need to make a priority. You will need to decide how you're going to make it happen. So if it's the right thing for you to do, I would say make time to do it, write it in a timely manner, and look at your time scale. So you break it down into bite-sized chunks that makes it easier for you to write it and also publish it. Our designer does a whole Gantt chart when we get to the publishing stage. So Sam puts together literally everything that's involved, so everyone knows, what time each, what date each thing needs to be done, which makes it easier to fit it in around other things in your life, because you will have a life as well as writing it. So that's it for me today, all about the tea. If any of you who are live have got any questions, please pop them in the question box. I'm happy to answer them. And tomorrow, Wednesday, the 6th of November, I'll be back with You and Your Story. Why you need to be in the heart of your book, but your reader in the forefront of your mind. Thanks for joining me, and bye for now. See you later.